Serve and Protect provides trauma services for first responders and public safety professionals. To date, the ministry has helped more than 2,500 people in need. Chaplain Robert Michaels is the founder of Serve and Protect, and he returns to the show to talk about more about, reaching out to first responders, people who protect us every day of our lives. They have, police officers have come under fire in recent years, and yet there is something happening underneath and behind the scenes that we don't even see with these officers who have come under fire for, for doing their job.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things that's an issue is leadership politically. I'll give you a perfect example. New York City, they affectionately called de Blasio Big Bird. His solution when a police officer encounters a traumatic situation is to close their eyes and count to 10. I'm just going to say it. That's stupid, because he will die. I mean, if you're a bad guy and you see a cop do this and start counting to 10, they're going to go, what's up with this? Now he's come out with, when you pull up on the scene, you should introduce yourself. Good afternoon. My name is Rob. I'm here to serve you. How can I help? He's never been on the street. When you pull up on the scene of a traumatic incident, it's pretty fast-paced. The guys that call us, their departments often don't understand what they're going through. We had one guy in Florida that when he talked about post-traumatic stress, they put him on administrative leave without pay 2 weeks before Christmas with 6 kids. So he called us for help, and we got him the help that he needed. We're trying to do 2 things. One is to serve families and save lives. The other side of it is to educate people about what Serve and Protect is, what post-traumatic stress is, more than that. And in many cases, we have an opportunity to open up about how God fits into all of that. Whenever somebody calls, I'll always ask them, do you come from a faith background? Because as a chaplain, you're not supposed to impose your faith, but I call what we do being sheep in wolves clothing, particularly if you've been in law enforcement. They know I get it. But, it wasn't always like that. Serve and Protect was actually birthed in church. I was sitting in church one morning. When I got there, I'm a creature of habit. Somebody was in my second row seat. And I had one of 2 choices. Get them out, or the better decision, and I could do that, but the better decision was to sit in the front row. And I was feeling uncomfortable being out of my comfort zone, and I was working with another nonprofit, and I just said, Lord, what are you saying? He put Serve and Protect on my mind. That was in May of 2011. I went home and started working on it. In July 2011, we launched Serve and Protect. And as you mentioned earlier, it was a 41-year journey. Serve and Protect was the culmination of years of what a friend asked me one time, can't you keep a job? Because it was varied experiences. I mean, my resume would give a career planner nightmares, but it was a God-ordained path. I call it a recalculated route.
So now you are a chaplain with the FBI.
Yes, ma'am.
You were a former police detective, and now you're helping first responders. That would include police officers, EMT, firefighters, and rightfully said,
and corrections officers.
Corrections officers.
And now veterans.
Okay, who are calling.
They try and go to the VA, and they've got a wait list. And more than not, if they have post-traumatic stress, the same kind of thing happens in law enforcement. You're depressed, I got a pill.
For the person who's watching saying, well, if there is something going on after, say, for instance, someone has had to fight a fire and, was injured in the process, or a police officer or a corrections officer, and they are injured and they are having some emotional problems, should they go back on the street, or, what is the response to that?
Well, we all face trauma. When you choose to take on that job, you see traumatic experiences, whether it's gunfire, whether it's seeing carnage from a traffic accident or a fire. My brother-in-law was a firefighter, and it shook him when he had to go into a building and 4 young people were dead. And I won't get graphic, but the point is they were really dead. And he had to experience that. That really caused him a lot of emotional stress.
As a chaplain, do you find that people who have faith have an easier ability to cope with this PTSD, or does it matter?
The problem with being a first responder in faith, we started a Bible study 4 years ago. It's called Guns and Hoses. And it's in hiatus right now, but we're getting ready to start it back up. The problem is your shift is so random. When I went on the police department, I was a Christian. I wanted to be the best Christian cop ever. And got out there on the street, and I was trained by the guys that came on in the 50s and 60s. Their solution was a little different. And I didn't get to go to church, and that's the story with a lot of them. When I say, do you have a faith background? You know, some years ago I did. But I'm going to tell you, God turned me around because it was like a plumb line. He gave me a Christian partner, and we were out one night, and I grabbed a kid that was disorderly, and I was going to adjust his attitude. So I had him by the collar, and I was getting ready to hit him, and my partner put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "You really need to do that." His name's Drew Grant. He's still my best friend. He was my first call starting Serve and Protect. Had he not done what he did, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. God put him there to recalculate my route. And, you know, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I tell that story when I go out and speak. And people need to understand. I mean, I was a cop, I was an MP, I was in radio, I was a preacher, I was in the music business, and you look at that and you go, how does that make sense? I go out and talk. I'm here with you guys. I'm comfortable. I designed our cards, our promotional materials, our website, even our mobile app that we have on our website.
So if someone is watching, they have a loved one, or maybe a first responder is watching today and they need your help, what is the first step when they make that call? What do you do?
Well, if they call our crisis line, 615-373-8000, press option 1. They will immediately be connected with one of our peer advocates. Our peer advocates are former police or first responders. And they'll talk with them. They'll find out what's going on. They'll determine what the need is. Maybe it's an addiction that they can't kick, so we get them into a rehab that is a dual diagnosis, because alcoholism, addiction to other things, is not a symptom of PTSD, it's a byproduct. And so we put them in a place, because if you don't treat the PTSD, the alcohol will return, or the addiction will. So we make sure that they get that care. But if that's not where they are, if they just need to talk to somebody, they call me. I get their insurance card information, I get their zip code, and I'll call a trauma therapist. In fact, I'll call 3 or 4 and interview them. I interview every therapist before I make a referral. Have you ever worked with first responders? I do that because once I called and the lady said, "No, I don't, and I don't want to."
Wow.
And I said, "Good, I'm glad that you're honest."
Yeah.
But I make sure, because here's the thing, with our guys, you get one shot. When they call up, if it's not a good fit, they could walk away and go, "Phooey on this." So we make it as easy as possible for them to get help. Now, if they're in the residential side, we have what we call 360 care. When they're getting ready to get out, we find a trauma therapist in their area to help with the continuum of care, so there's a recovery. But we take care of them, and we don't charge a dime.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do for the individuals who put their lives on the line to protect and serve, you know, the streets of America and in other countries, I'm sure. As you said in a previous interview, to connect with Robert, go to serveprotect.org or go to harvest-tv.com. Still to come, Chuck visited his kindergarten teacher to talk about the difference she has made in his life. But up next, Brian Bush with today's Moments from the Holy Land. We'll be right back.